It's so hard now to get jobs post-graduation in any field, especially in finance as well.
And this is where I think parents also need to actually think about in terms of their overall financial planning, okay? They need to be thinking, yes, we need to put our pensions in place, we need to put our ISAs in place, but we also need a fund for that particular child who we're going to be putting through to education, because ultimately they become an investment.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Way of Wealth with myself, Prajesh, and my co-host Mohammed. And our guest today is Saftar from Binary Capital. He's the Chief Investment Officer there. So as you can imagine, on this podcast, we are going to be covering a lot of investment-related topics. Saftar, welcome.
Pleasure to be here, Prajesh. Thank you for having me, Prajesh. Mohammed, it's an honor to be here.
No, likewise. The honour is all ours, Saftar. We'd love to hear about what your role entails at Binary Capital.
Yeah, so in summary, I'm the kind of CIO, Chief Investment Officer, which means basically I head up the investment team.
Yep.
So just taking a step back, I guess, I started the business with my business partners roughly about 7 years ago. I've got 20 odd years experience of investing across many firms, many strategies and setups. Yeah. So we decided to go independent, become more entrepreneurial as one does, as you guys are doing as well. I'm sure you guys have got a lot to see as well. Yeah. And so I manage the investment functions, make sure the investment strategies are fit for purpose. Trading, investing, monitoring every day for clients, for potential clients as well. So I spend a lot of my time engaging with potential prospects and trying to see where we can maybe help them, engage with them around some of their solutions, our strategies and so on as well. So it's mainly an investment role, analytical, investing, managing, looking at markets, geopolitics, reading, as well as speaking to clients, which I like a lot of client facing, traveling as well across the UK to do so.
Nice. Do you have a big team under you?
Yeah, there's about 8 of us in total, 10 of us, I guess, in total. Investment side is about 4. Yeah. And then we have an investment team, which I oversee and manage. And as well as that, we have similar to many other investment firms, client relationships, personnel who manage the client relationships overall, as well as business development colleagues who go out and about, prospect, try and bring in leads for us so we can speak to them. I mean, ultimately we're running a business, so we want to get more business through the door as well, create revenues, create good returns for clients, and so on as well.
Great. How do you get into the world of investment management?
How did I get in?
Yeah, how do you get into it? How could young people get into it?
So what I'm going to say is actually relevant now in 2025 as it was when I started, 30 odd years ago. Mine is quite a weird story as well, so bear with me while I tell you guys. Yeah. So I'm from a working class background in Glasgow, raised there, Pakistani heritage, I guess, in terms of my heritage and so on. So when I was growing up, with poverty, we weren't well off as a family. My dad was working class, he was working in factories or whatever, came here in the 60s like a lot of our generational parents did. Yep. And then what happened was he had shops. He had newspaper shops eventually. He was running them. And I used to help him during the weekends and summer holidays or whatever, as one does. But then when it was quiet, I got bored. And then I used to read the FT. Yeah. And this is when I was 10 or 12. Nice. So I used to read the FT or the broadsheets. And that's what got me into, this is really interesting. A, I was quite interested in it. B, politics, finance comes together. You can actually make money from shares or investing as opposed to physically being in a shop or doing physical labour and taking a paycheck after each week or whatever. So that got me thinking, got me interested in markets. I then started trading shares at quite an early age. This is about 15, 16. Some people may remember, if they're old enough, the UK government during the 80s and 90s did privatisations of their state assets. Yes. BT is a popular one, British Gas, Realtrack. So I started investing in them, looking up, putting some money in, sending a check.
How old were you then?
I was about 15, 16. Wow. You're very young. So I was then developing my reading through newspapers primarily and library, and then started investing and saying, well, this is interesting, I can put some money in. Next week, the shares were sold quite cheaply by the government because they wanted to get rid of the asset to private shareholders and make more efficiencies. So you doubled your money overnight sometimes. You put in £500, made £500 in 2 weeks, and like sold the shares or whatever. So wow, this is quite cool. So that's what got me into investing.
But how much money were you investing, Saftar?
Not much.
You were 15 years old.
£1,000, £2,000. I invest in weird stuff like football shares, which we may come on to, we may not, I don't know, because I have an interest in football. And then that got me into, okay, what can I do to get into the industry, perhaps? Then I studied economics and finance at university. I was quite good at it. I did a postgrad in kind of accounting and finance.
Cool.
And then for graduates now, I was very lucky. First, you have to have a lot of luck. I was very lucky. I got my first job in Edinburgh, probably one of the first brown guys on the investment team or investment desk then, going back 30 years.
Which company?
Bailey Gifford.
Oh, Bailey Gifford.
Very, very big firm now, managing 300 billion or so, very successful firm. So I got lucky where I got a job there. I worked my way up. Even now, I got mentored, and this is important for young people today. I got mentored by very good people that taught me everything I know, even now. So for young people, it's about, for me, the lessons I give them is, work hard, whatever that means now, reading. The act or skill of reading now is gone. So physically reading books, reading newspapers like I used to do. Even now, I still read the FT physically every day. Read, have a passion for it. There's no point going into investments to make money. Okay, that'll come over time, but that shouldn't be the number one reason. So read, have a passion for it, have the elite degrees. That's very important because it's so competitive now to when even I started. I couldn't probably get a job now. It's that competitive. And then equally get mentored by good people once you get into a space or company or even an internship or whatever. Learn a lot. Ask questions, learn, soak it all in.
I like the point that you said about reading something physical. I mentioned that to you a few weeks ago, didn't I? Like, read a physical book. There's something about turning the pages that it just allows you to absorb information in a way that reading a PDF on this, it just doesn't do the same level of justice or the same level of, I don't know, it doesn't have the same level of substance. Okay?
Because in my view, investing, I'm sure you guys can resonate when you speak to clients. Investing is all about knowledge, you know, whether it's political knowledge, investment knowledge, market knowledge, tax knowledge, planning knowledge. So the more knowledge one has, you have a competitive advantage. And you'll be surprised the amount of people now that don't read or certainly don't know much about finance, investing. So by reading, even reading history books, reading biographies about successful investors, business people, you can pick up so much that will help you become a better investor. And every day, one should be reading. I still do that. I read a book a week, roughly speaking. I don't watch any TV. Apart from football, I watch zero TV. I don't have a Netflix account. I don't have an Amazon account. I have zero interest in watching any films whatsoever.
What kind of books are you reading?
Biographies, investment books. I'm reading a book about, just now, about management. You know, I suppose because I do, you know, a reasonably senior role about management styles, you know, how to be authentic, how to have radical candor, I think it is. A next book by, she was at Google and Alphabet and other areas, and she talks about how to be radical with your employees to get the best out of them, and rather than shying away from the hard questions, whether it's about performance or whatever. So I kind of want to read. I always have a book, you know, at the side to try and pick up as and when one can kind of do so.
What were you like as a kid, Saftar? I mean, I was like 12 years old, 15 years old, 18 years old. What were you like the geek in the middle, geek in the class? Were you more inquisitive? Were you more on the sports side? I mean, you mentioned,
I think a bit of everything. I mean, I was quite geeky. I was quite into, as I said, my reading. I enjoyed sports, so I was always interested. I mean, Glasgow, Scotland, it's got a very much a kind of football culture. So working class football, Glasgow, there's two teams basically, so one has to pick a side, a bit like London somewhat. So I was into all of that. And then, just kind of, I suppose in some respects, again, a good lesson for young people now, following your own path, not being led by what your friends are doing if they're going out or if they're doing X, Y, Z, not been doing that. If you're happy doing what you're doing, whether it's reading or seeing the bigger world, whether it's reading about the US, even during that time, the US was opening up. Economically, Reagan was in power. Reaganomics,
Yes.
Thatcherism was very much that trend as well. So taking that in individually, as opposed to following what XYZ is saying as a friend and so on as well. And I still kind of have that now. I kind of follow my own path. I don't really pay too much attention to what my friends or family will say to me in broad terms. And I think that's important, to have kind of stability and not really caring but not really caring as well, because you've got to follow your own path, whether it's in business, in a career, and whatever. And importantly, have very, very good mentors or supervisors or whatever. I can't stress that enough. If I didn't have that, I would not have done what I did subsequently whatsoever.
Where did you meet your mentors?
At work. It was at work. I mean, you got to remember, when I was growing up, this is why I try and help now, where I give back, where we have internships in the business. I'm sure that you guys do, or whether that's when people reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever, you're doing well at Binary Capital. Can you ask me? Can I ask you how can I break in? I'm doing XYZ degree. So I didn't have any of that. I had no role models, no relatable models. I didn't come from that background. I didn't even know how to get in. So it was almost, as I said, by luck. It's only when I got in there, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I was doing this when I was 16. Now I can help analyse stocks, positions with these guys from Oxbridge or whatever, and they're going to be helping me, because it was all part of a team culture. And I'm listening to them. They were 5-10 years more experienced than me, incredibly clever, some PhDs or whatever, making a lot of money as well for themselves as well as for the business. So it was a case of sticking to them, the good guys, the good people that were saying that were helping me. Ultimately, the thing is, and I tell people this now as well, if you become indispensable to someone, i.e. if they tell you to do something and you do it without having to go back and forward, what is this, I don't understand this, they will give you a lot of respect. And that's again another skill that people lose, where they can maybe do half and half a job, they're not that engaged or whatever, or they can be lazy. You turn up on time, you turn up earlier than them sometimes. As I said, if they tell you to do this spreadsheet, for example, or this data points, then it was putting a lot of data physically, from books or whatever into spreadsheets and so on as well. You do that, and they will give you so much respect, and then they'll obviously answer your questions or help you grow up the ladder. Because if you make them look good, whatever that means, they will obviously reciprocate that over time as well.
So knowledge is clearly very important to yourself. And I think to anyone that wants to succeed in the investment industry. And I think off the back of your TikTok that has gone viral about Mickey Mouse degrees, do you think for someone that wants to get into the investment industry or get started in the finance industry, is it important they go to university and do a degree? Is it perhaps as important as it was in the past?
So when I was growing up, to go to university was quite a rarity. Maybe 1 in 3 went to university during the early 1990s. So it was quite a kind of rarity, unique position. Now, as we know, there's so many universities, polytechnics, colleges have become universities. So there's degrees of universities. So maybe controversially as well, similar to Mohammed, my view is now, because there's so much competition now as well. Previously, it was all about UK graduates. Now, obviously we've got tremendous talent from Eastern Europeans, Russians, great mathematicians from Russia, Chinese, whatever. We see that every single day. So my view now to any graduate, and I tell this to my son, or anybody wanting to do a degree is, firstly, do a degree that you like, you have a passion for. Secondly, if you can, go to an elite university, whatever that means to you, Russell Group, Oxbridge, London, Edinburgh or whatever, because that's only going to help you, give you that competitive advantage. Otherwise, it is so hard now to get jobs post-graduation in any field, especially in finance as well. I'm sure we'll touch on it with the advent of AI, technology or whatever. It's 10 times more harder than it was even 10 years ago.
But I think those great tips, but I think that needs to be instilled very, very early on to parents, because you can't just turn up and go to a Russell Group University or the LSE or Imperial or somewhere like that. I mean, this is where nurturing and education really comes in from primary school, right?
Absolutely.
And this is where if your state school isn't good enough, then that needs to be supplemented with private tuition. And then when private tuition can fill that gap, then you've got a greater opportunity, to get into the right type of college.
Yeah.
And then at college, you may need additional private tuition.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is where I think parents also need to actually think about in terms of their overall financial planning. Okay. They need to be thinking, yes, we need to put our pensions in place. We need to put our ISAs in place, but we also need a fund for that particular child who we're going to be putting through to education, because ultimately they become an investment. Well, hopefully they're supposed to become an investment later on in life.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, that's where your roles come in, where you've got education expensive anywhere where it's the UK. It's only going to get more expensive. As we know, school fees have gone up, in terms of VAT that the current government have done as well. And you're absolutely right, Mohammed. And I say to people, you need to have a strategy. It's like a business plan. You need to have a strategy for your child at 10 or 12, well before they're even going to apply for any university courses or whatever they do, in terms of how can they get to 18 to a top university, do a top subject, whether it's PPE, whether it's computer science, whether it's data analytics or AI or whatever, and what universities they can go for. Because in my view, the quality of universities, certainly in the UK education system, has come down as well. So that's another factor. And again, what I said earlier, the soft skills, can this young person, young girl, young boy, can they stand up and publicly speak? Public speaking is as the youngsters say, a flex that one needs to do, and not many people do that. Everybody's on their screens, the gaming or whatever. I talked about reading. If you can be a good public speaker, and you need to learn that, it might take you 10 years to do that, where it's in front of one person or in front of 200 people without notes. Again, another value add in our industry anyway, to build confidence, to engage with clients, because we're all salespeople at the end of the day.
Of course.
I am, you guys are as well, to win business. And how do you sell? You've got to sell confidently, coherently, being articulate as well with clients, prospects, with your colleagues, everything.
I think absolutely.
In my opinion, education is really important for the younger generation. But I think there's different ways to learn. So certainly in the classroom, where basic English literacy or mathematical literacy skills can be taught and should be taught all the way up until 16 years old, then it's at that point when children are asked to specialise, going into A-level and then get really specific from university onwards. So, in my opinion, coming back to the point you were making earlier, there's a huge amount of university degrees out there.
Too many.
Too many.
Yeah.
And I think if someone knows what they want to do and they're really dedicated to that, they know it's their passion, they know that they can get suitably rewarded from it. If they're Asian, if their parents agreed to it, then they should go ahead with that degree. But if they're a little bit uncertain, there's no rush to do a degree.
Of course. I mean, I would agree, Prajesh. I mean, if there's now the advent of apprenticeship courses where you're studying as well as working.
Exactly,
I know many firms in financial services do that. I think that's a good option as well for young adults now.
As well as professional qualifications.
Indeed, as well as professional qualification one can do. I'm kind of old-fashioned in some respects. I still go back to the point, do a degree, spend 3 years away from, work will always be there when you're 21, 25, 20. So get that life experience of research and analytics, and do a degree or something that you're passionate about that's aligned to your career choices, hopefully. Try and do it in an elite university, wherever that means. I don't want to kind of go into detail around that, but in broad terms. And then that investment, whether it's 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, hopefully will pay off. It may not do, so that's the risk, but hopefully it'll pay off over time. If nothing else, you're well educated. Anyway.
But you don't want to be well educated in a serious debt that you can't pay off, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where you guys can maybe help.
That's only if the parents can actually have got enough capital that can actually help pay that debt off, right?
Exactly.
There's a theory, I don't know if you guys agree with me, there's a theory that eventually maybe not this government, but eventually future governments, because the debt will be so much of the student populations, and these guys obviously paying it off every month through the salary post certain thresholds, the government will have to write that debt off eventually, because that generation can't afford to buy a house, move out of their parents, for example, and so on as well, can't even live, they're kind of struggling, you know, day to day, month to month, paycheck to paycheck, renting or whatever. So there's that theory, but that's a for future government.
You know, the fact that we have, all right, and I've literally just thought about this now, okay? The fact that we have so many degrees that I am going to double down on this, guys, all right? Mickey Mouse degrees, okay? The fact that we have so many of these. The fact that we have so many of these type of degrees, okay? Okay. We have to think about, does it add public welfare value or welfare to our, let's say, our national economy?
Yeah.
Okay. Like when things are going incredibly well, okay, I guess as a nation we can afford to study, I don't know, David Beckham, okay, and do a whole 3-year degree on just him, okay, or celebrity culture, broader terms. I really like David Beckham, by the way. I think he's Sir David Beckham.
That's right.
Forgive me,
He's
Sir
a,
David
he's a knight
Beckham.
of the realm.
No, I think he's a phenomenal role model, to be honest. But that's going on a tangent. Having said that, though, I reckon there needs to be, I don't know, some type of subsidies or to students who choose to study in those particular fields that have economic and social value to the country. That can, in some way, they add stability to the nation. Okay, or it adds to economic growth.
Understood. But then, how do you value that? So you're saying to me, or to the student,
It's quite easy.
You can only study economics.
No, not saying
maths, not music.
No, it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, we know where there's labour shortages, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we know where certain industries are flailing. Okay, if that's going to happen, then we know we need to build up expertise, whether it's via degree or whether it's via vocational qualifications. Okay, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be both. Yeah. Okay, we need to be putting a lot of investment in that particular space. And what I mean by subsidies here is, look, if you want to study a Mickey Mouse degree, it's going to cost you 10 grand. If you want to study a proper degree that's going to have economic value, social value, all right, you're going to get a 50% discount or a 25% discount and so forth.
Thank you for listening, and tune in next week for part 2.